As far as I know, there are no trees on the moon, which means there are no leaves on the moon. But if there were, and if there had been, you can bet your ass somebody's job would be to rake them up. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Countdown to Bond 25. Today's film is the infamous Moonraker. James Bond is nothing if not a slave to the tastes of the time. When blaxploitation films were all the rage, he made Live and Let Die. When chopsocky kung fu was all the rage, he made The Man with the Golden Gun. And now that Star Wars and 2001 and Close Encounters were all the rage, he makes Moonraker. The plot is that our villain wants to start a new civilization of perfect specimens, but in space. Then he wants to send all of their offspring back to Earth generations later so that the people of Earth in the far future can worship him as a sky god. Sure. First of all, I find it so funny. The 1970s were so full of tan and taupe that even the opening gun barrel shot of Moonraker can't help but be a little bit more beige than usual. The intro is a lot of fun, though. The Moonraker shuttle gets stolen, but more importantly, we get an amazing free-fall fight scene involving James Bond and Jaws. That's right, Jaws, the henchman from the last film, has come back. And that, folks, is what makes Jaws unique. Because as far as I know, he is the only villainous henchman in the entire franchise to come back for a second movie. That, my friends, is the power of Jaws. The opening song is simply titled Moonraker, and it is the third and final outing by Miss Shirley Bassey, the record holder who has sung the most James Bond songs ever. Shirley's third song is definitely her least memorable. I like that she has sort of cornered the market on being the James Bond go-to singer. I don't know if she's still alive, but if she is, give her one more. Just one more. Just for funsies. The only first, really, that happens in Moonraker is, like I mentioned, this is the first time that a henchman returns for a second movie. Jaws is just that much fun. Other than that, it's the first time the franchise goes to space, I guess. It's the only time, but there you go. This is the 11th movie. It took Fast and the Furious 10 movies to go to space, so when you have something that's so steeped in science fiction as Moonraker, rest assured you are going to have a shit ton of gadgets to go with it. James Bond's gadgets here include the main one being a wrist dart launcher that can launch different types of darts for different types of situations. This feels like something straight out of a video game. I love the dart launcher. It feels right. It feels like an iconic Bond gadget. He also has a 007 spy camera that says 007 on it. Way to stay incognito, James. And a cigarette case that doubles as a safe cracking device. Then there is what I can only describe as a motorized hovercraft gondola. During a chase scene in Venice, it hovers. This is a silly movie. We also get a little scene that takes place in a quartermaster sort of gadget training area where we see exploding bolas and the laser gun that you might remember if you're familiar with GoldenEye 64. It's a very cool sci-fi-ish 1970s laser gun, and I really like the look of it and the sound it makes when it's fired. There are three wonderful Bond ladies in Moonraker. The first one is Manuela, who is James's contact in Rio. We don't see much of her. Then once we get to France, we meet Corinne Dufour, the personal pilot to our villain. She is played by Corinne Cléry, and she does not last long. She's not long for this world, because what happens when you betray the villain you work for, he gets mad and he kills you with his villain traps. Then finally, our main lady of the picture is Dr. Holly Goodhead, played by Lois Chiles. She is an astronaut and a secret CIA agent, but thankfully, there's not a whole lot of incompetence once we reach the third act. Yes, she does still get starry-eyed for James Bond, because of course she does, but Dr. Holly Goodhead can do many things James Bond can't, up to and including flying space shuttles and, knowing how space travel works. James cannot know everything. The villains include Jaws, another henchman named Chang, whose name is pronounced Cha, according to Wikipedia. It's very hard. They don't really say his name that often in the movie, but he's there. He's a cool little henchman who has a nice fight with James Bond. But the main villain of the show is Mr. Hugo Drax, which is a very neat evil name. He is played by Michael Lonsdale, who actually passed away very recently. In early 2020, Michael Lonsdale unfortunately passed, and it was right around the time I started doing the Countdown to Bond 25, so it was kind of a shocker. It hit me right at that moment. R.I.P. Mr. Lonsdale, thank you for giving us Hugo Drax, this very strange man who looks a lot like Tyrion Lannister, who decides he wants to be the one and only god in space and have a perfect race of people. His plan is straight up bananas. The death traps in Moonraker, one of them at least, ranks among the scariest. It's definitely the one that I would not be able to survive at all. It is the centrifugal motion machine at the astronauts training center. This is a machine that's meant to simulate the motion of traveling through space at high velocities, which, include making the person in the machine feel dizzy. All of that would instantly kill me because I cannot handle nausea to save my life. And James Bond is almost outdone by the centrifugal motion machine. Chang cranks it up to 11 to try to squash James Bond with pure physics. And if not for the handy-dandy wrist launcher he got from Q Branch, Chang would have succeeded. We also get a giant python that comes out of a pool, but that does little to dissuade James Bond. And at the very end, Bond and Dr. Goodhead end up trapped in a room right underneath the rocket exhaust. So once Hugo Drax launches the Moonraker rocket, ideally he will fry them to a crisp while at the same time furthering his evil goals. That's a scary one too, come to think of it. Anything with fire, getting burned alive, no thank you. The best quote of the film comes when James Bond is on a plane. Being the very problematic man that he is, he starts fondling the leg of a stewardess in a tiny skirt. And as he caresses her leg higher and higher, she says to him, "Any higher, Mr. Bond, and my ears will pop." The most problematic moment of Moonraker comes when James is instructed to find a Dr. Goodhead, and he arrives at the clinic where she works, and then, surprise, he finds out that Dr. Goodhead is, in fact, a lady. And he can't believe that there is a lady who is also a doctor. Gasp, shock, horrors. And of course, he proceeds to belittle and patronize her for being a woman doctor because that's the kind of guy Ian Fleming thinks should be everybody's hero. There are no words at this point. Like, are we even surprised anymore? Overall, this is a fun movie, if definitely a cartoony one. The whole stuff with Jaws and the gondola chase really kind of feels like it's pulled straight out of a Tom and Jerry. And there are some tongue-in-cheek moments too, like a keypad lock where the musical code to open the lock is the theme from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. They were really pushing the whole sci-fi movie thing here. We do get some interesting stuff in Moonraker. Like, this is one of those very rare times when M himself actually comes out into the field. M arrives in Venice in person to catch Bond up on what's been going on in the mission. Moonraker also happens to be the last time that we hear a particular piece of James Bond theme music. This is an action theme that has been around since, I think, the first movie. It was definitely around in Goldfinger, that's as early as I can remember it. But it's an action theme that they play usually during the climax of these. Kind of goes... It's very brass heavy and very bombastic and kind of silly. It's not my favorite James Bond theme by a long shot. But Moonraker is the last time we ever hear this theme. It happens during a very fun jungle boat chase where Jaws and some of Drax's henchmen are chasing James Bond right up to and over a waterfall. But that has been Moonraker here on the Countdown. Tomorrow, when you show up, please do me a favor. Do not bring your hands, do not bring your ears, do not bring your nose, mouth, or hair, because the movie we'll be talking about is for your eyes only. See you then.